Hey guys, I'm Jordan and you're watching Fixbook. After watching this video, your car problems stand about as much a chance as this laptop does against my hot lead. Now, make sure you stay tuned so you can see what happened to the laptop at the end of this video. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment down below. So today, I'm going to show you how to diagnose a P0400 code in your Infiniti J30. Alright guys, and the first thing you're going to want to do when diagnosing any diagnostic trouble code is we're going to want to go ahead and hook up our scan tool. And we're going to take our key, stick it in the ignition, and we're going to go ahead and run the diagnostic trouble code check and see which codes pop up and in what order they pop up. Now, I bet you're wondering just where is that electrical connector you plugged into, Jordan? Well, that's fine, because I'm going to tell you. Now, in most cars, I'm going to back it up here. I know you may not necessarily be working on this car, but on most cars, it's going to be right around here somewhere. Our particular one for the Infiniti J30 is going to be right here. It's this white little connector we've got. Sometimes they'll be over in this area, but it's generally going to be under the driver's side seat. And I do have a Honda channel. The name of my channel is Honda How To One. So in most Hondas, or at least in the Honda Civic, it's going to be, instead of sticking out this way, it's going to be pointing down. So if you were to stick your head under there and look directly up, it's going to be up there, and the connector will be looking down at you. So that's where you'd find it on most Hondas. And if I'm not mistaken, in some of the Honda Accords, it's actually, sorry, I don't want to get in this person's car, it's actually on the passenger side in the, if you go look in the same area in the floorboard, and I believe it's more to the left there. So if you know differently, let me know in the comments. But that pretty much sums up where you'd find your obd-II connector. So once you've found your obd-II connector and you've actually got your scan tool plugged up, what you're going to want to do is go ahead and get to the main menu and get your vehicle diagnostics, hit enter, and also make sure your key is in the ignition system to the on position. Now it's going to say, do you want to erase the previous codes? And no, I don't. I'm going to go ahead and go down to read codes. Now we're going to take a look at our codes here, and we're going to start with the code that comes up first. That's the code we're going to diagnose. And this is the P0400 video, so today we're going to be focusing on that P0400 code. I know there's going to be two codes that pop up here, and for this particular car we are going to be focusing on that P0400. And I also have a P0325 video, you can check that out too. But once you've pulled up your diagnostic trouble codes on the scan tool, or if you had it done by AutoZone or one of those places that does the quote-unquote free diagnostic test, then we can go ahead and start the diagnosis process as long as we know which code popped up first. Now, let's go check out. Alright guys, and the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and pop the hood and start the engine. You're going to need to get the engine warmed up to test it properly, and we'll also need to get under the hood to take a look and see what's going on. Alright, and the first piece we're going to be checking here, guys, is this solenoid here. It's the EGR solenoid valve, and what this little guy does is he communicates with the ECM and reports back and affects the way your EGR valve works. And what I'm pointing at right there, my finger on, we see we got a hose, a vacuum hose coming off there, and then we've also got two vacuum hoses coming off, one there and that split one right there. And I suppose that's going to be our problem for this car, but I'm going to still walk you through the whole process. So the first thing we'll be checking, like I said, is this EGR solenoid. And what we're going to do is, the first step is to inspect the hoses, and as we can see, I already got a hose right there which is split, and the first hose that we want to check is going to be the hose that goes from the EGR solenoid to the EGR valve, and that just so happens to be that split one right there. So what we're going to do to check that is we're going to remove that hose. We're going to test the vacuum coming off it, and that will determine our problem. And in order to do that, you need to have the car running for a while, and you need to get it warmed up, and then you're going to need to have somebody in the driver's seat and have them rev the car from 2,000 to 3,000 RPMs. You could also try and go over there and do it yourself. Just rev it manually with your hand, but you're not going to know whether it's at 2,000 to 3,000 RPMs. But we're going to set the vacuum pump up on this and then test and see what kind of vacuum that hose is going to be pulling there, which I don't suppose it's going to be much with a split hose like that. But that's the first step in testing our problem here, trying to figure out the problem, is we're going to be testing the vacuum on this hose. And you'll see me do that here in just a second. Alright guys, and we're going to want to start by taking a vacuum gauge that looks something like this, and you're going to hook your thing up here and get a fitting one that's going to work for your little hose there. So I've got this guy just kind of connected right there, and we're going to hook this piece right up here to that hose down in here, and then I'll have the hose looked up and I'll be observing this while the car is running, and while the person helping me here is going to be revving it at 2,000 to 3,000 RPMs. I'm just going to kind of inspect the vacuum here. Alright guys, so we've got the car running and warmed up, and we've got our vacuum gauge here hooked right up to the hose here, and if we can see, it's the hose that connects right to this piece right here. So that hose I just lifted up on, it's going to be hooked up to the end of that, and then you're going to take your vacuum gauge and you're going to hook it up to that hose, which runs down to there. And now we're just going to take a look at the gauge and see what happens when I put about 2,000 to 3,000 RPMs on it. Alright guys, so what we've got going on here is we've got the gauge hooked up to our hoses here, and I'm going to put about 2,500 RPMs on it, and we'll see that the vacuum jumps up, but then it just kind of falls back down. That's not really what we're looking for. We're going to be looking for a steady vacuum here, and if the hose was fine, it would probably just hold that vacuum. So you can see it jumps to about 10, and then it goes right back down. So that's going to be a problem. So we will replace that hose, and if that's not quite your problem, then we're going to look a little deeper into the problem and see what else we could do to possibly get this P0400 code cleared off your car, and most importantly of all, fix the problem. Alright guys, and one last thing here. I'm mad at myself because I just got done with this project here, and I had tested the vacuum coming off that solenoid when I had it all fixed, and before you would see it come about right up to here, and then it would kind of sink down, or maybe it'd come up to there and it would sink down. But once I got it all done, a good vacuum, this information is good so you'll know what a good vacuum looks like, but a good vacuum you want coming off of that hose right there is it'll sit at 30 and it'll just stay at 30, and when you're revving it, I mean, it'll jump up to 40 and just barely hit 50. So that was good vacuum, and the first test going around there, it only, I mean, came up to 20 at the highest. So the strong vacuum, it's going to sit right there at around 30. So just to let you guys know, that's the number you can expect when you're testing for that, the vacuum coming off that EGR solenoid. That's what you want to see. So that's it. Alright guys, and the next fun task we have to do here is we're going to remove this EGR solenoid, because you're going to want to test the solenoid, and in order to do so you need to disconnect the connector, which you could just barely see in there, and it's a fun connector to disconnect if you've ever done one before. What you do is you take a pick and you got to remove that metal clip in order to remove that connector. So my hands are just not small enough to do that in that little place, so I'm gonna just remove that 10mm nut sitting right there, and I'm gonna bring the EGR solenoid up here, and then I'll show you how to test the solenoid, the valve in the solenoid, to see whether that could be the cause of your problem or not. Alright guys, and you'll remove that nut by taking a 10mm combination wrench and getting him on there like you can see me struggling to do right here, and then we're gonna lefty-loosey him just like that, and don't drop the combination wrench like me, but I just broke him loose, and just go ahead and proceed to remove that nut, and then we'll pull our EGR solenoid right up in a workable area. Alright guys, and when you're working with that nut in there, you may find it beneficial here to just kind of go ahead and remove this hose clamp right here and get this hose on out of your way so you can really get down in there with your hands and work with it a little bit better. So just do it like that, and then just kind of work this hose off and take them out of this piece right here as well, and just kind of find a place to put them here kind of work them off to the side so he's out of your way, so you can really fit your hands down in there and grab a hold of that EGR solenoid and make sure you capture that nut and pull them on up. And the other thing you may want to do here, guys, once you got that hose and also the little hose that was sitting right in there out of your way, is you may want to go ahead and take a pair of pliers and grab onto this bracket piece right here and just bend it a little bit. That'll really give you a lot more room to work with, and it's not going to hurt anything. You can bend it back to where you put it once you're done, so that'll give you a lot more room to work with when you're taking that nut out. Alright guys, and now once you've got that EGR solenoid out and ready to work with here, as you can see, I've got them pulled up here and I can get to that connector a lot easier now. Alright guys, so now with the ignition key turned to the on position, we're going to begin working on removing this connector here. And like I said, what we're working with here is this metal clip we've got right here. So I'm just going to take my pick and just begin the joyous journey of removing this clip. And really, I wish I had like a 90-degree clip, but unfortunately I don't, so I'm going to twist it in this way, in such a way, so that we can get to it like this. And this is a fun little thing to do here. Not really. Alright guys, and I was struggling just a bit there, so I kind of took a new approach. I'm kind of tackling it from this side now. So what I did was I just kind of stuck my pick in the end of that corner and just kind of twisted back and forth until I got it worked in there. And then we're just gonna, the idea is to get the clip out of that plastic piece right there. So we're just kind of wedge and pull up so we get it off that clip right there, and then we just pull our staple-like piece right out, and then we won't have a problem removing our connector. So we're just gonna grab them and I'm gonna pull out, but before I do that, I'm gonna set the mic up here so you can actually hear the valve clicking, which is the noise we're looking for. Alright guys, so with our metal clip removed and our key in the on position, we're now gonna remove our connector here. And if it's working properly, it should make an operating noise. Alright, so we just plugged and unplugged. Now, I didn't hear much of an operating noise, so this could be a weak valve in the solenoid valve, or it could be a faulty solenoid valve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this car back together with a new hose on. We're going to drive it for a little while after I reset the codes, and we're going to see if it trips that code again. So you can do the same, just kind of use this video to go through and see what the problem could possibly be. And the worst case scenario we're probably looking at for this P0400 code for this Infiniti J30 is you're probably going to need to replace the EGR solenoid. So worst comes to worst, you replace that solenoid or possibly the EGR valve. Now, that's just about all I have for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all my new videos, which publish Mondays and Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will see you then.